A community braced for more threats. Of course, San Bernardino is still reeling from the shock of the attack there. But there are other communities in the United States that now face the real fear of undeserved retaliation. Zainab Chaudry joins us from the Maryland Council on American Islamic Relations. Appreciate your being here. You have spoken of a sense of real dread in the Muslim community. Why?
Thank you so much for having me. The fact of the matter is, whenever an incident like this takes place where people are targeted, innocent civilians are targeted, and the suspects or the perpetrators are discovered to be Muslim or suspected to be Muslim, the entire faith community comes under attack, or they come under scrutiny. And so there's really this sense of whenever an incident like this takes place that, oh dear God, don't let it be Muslim. And unfortunately, last night we learned that the identity of one of the suspects possibly is Muslim.
But that fear came up even before, that sense of dread that you've been talking about came up even before we knew that.
Absolutely. And there's such a disparity that we see in how these kind of incidents are reported on when the suspects are thought to be Muslim.
Has it always been this way?
You know, it definitely seems like more recently that there's more pressure on the Muslim community. Of course, our hearts go out to the victims and the families of the victims, and the Muslim community has unequivocally condemned these attacks. All across the nation, there have been communities stepping up to say that this is not Islam.
You have seen, though, attacks on your communities, on mosques, and on individuals.
Recently, there has been an almost unprecedented level of anti-Muslim bigotry that we've been witnessing all across the country.
Unprecedented?
Unprecedented, even post 9/11, the frequency of the kind of attacks and the nature of threats that Muslims have been experiencing have really been something that we haven't seen to this level before, and it's really frightening.
What kinds of things have you seen?
Hate crimes and bias attacks. People who are Muslim or who are perceived to be Muslim, racial profiling and religious profiling of Muslims who might be traveling. People have been pulled off of planes.
There have been attacks, deliberate attacks on individuals. You cite a situation in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Just recently there was a taxi cab driver in Pittsburgh who was shot by a passenger allegedly. And it's just really a heartbreaking incident. You know,
shot why?
Apparently it seems that the taxi cab driver was questioned about ISIS and about terrorist organizations and his own religion, his own faith, and it's very frightening that anybody would be targeted because of their faith, or appear to be targeted because of their faith.
You have said that this is attacks coming at an almost unprecedented level in the experience of your organization. What do you attribute that to? I mean, is it the situation in Paris? Is it the situation in California? What do you think is provoking this level of attack and pressure on the community?
One factor that can't be ignored is the amped up anti-Muslim rhetoric that we're witnessing from politicians
such as
and elected officials. For example, from the GOP, we have two candidates, Mr. Trump and Dr. Carson, who have been making some reckless, inflammatory, and very irresponsible comments about Islam and Muslims. And these have further inflamed tensions and helped to propagate this idea that Muslims are not American.
Do you have a sense that politicians are working, after all this, we're heading into an election year, we're in the middle of the election season already, do you see there being an attempt by these political figures to increase the sense of dread?
We hope that they will tone it down. We hope that the politicians will begin speaking more responsibly and refrain from making comments that could potentially result in backlash towards any faith community.
Yeah, and there can be simple implication. I mean, it doesn't have to be that people are making specific threats against Muslims, but when a politician pairs extremism with an implication that it's related to a faith community, what happens?
That also further inflames tensions. It creates this sense within Americans' minds, especially Americans who've never met Muslims. We know up to 50 or 60% of the American population has never or met a Muslim that they're aware of. It further creates that sense of alienation and that sense of otherization that creates more distance between, you know, Muslim Americans and Americans of other faiths and of no faith.
All right. Appreciate your being here with us, Zainab Chaudry, Maryland Council on American Islam.